Amen. People may call the next witness.
Thank you. We call Sally Schoen.
You could please face me and raise your right hand. Do you solemnly state the testimony you may give in the cause now pending before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Please have a seat in the witness stand. And for the record, say and spell your first and last name, please.
My first name is Sally, S-A-L-L-Y, and my last name is Schoen, S-C-H-O-E-N.
It's showing you're somewhat soft-spoken. If you can move the microphone close to you and speak right into it loudly.
Okay.
Thank you. Proceed, please.
Thank you. Ms. Schoen, I'm going to ask you some questions back in the time frame of 2017. During that time frame, where were you employed?
I was in Geneva, Switzerland.
Okay, prior to that, in the years 2010, leading up to Geneva, Switzerland, where were you employed?
I was in Woodland Hills, California.
Who were you employed by?
First, I was employed by Procter & Gamble, and then in 2016, we were acquired by Coty.
During that time frame, did you know Fabio Sementilli?
Yes.
How did you know him?
2010, our families were moved here to work on the integration of Wella into Procter & Gamble, and Fabio and his family came from Toronto, and I came from Cincinnati, Ohio.
Now, you said Wella and Procter & Gamble. You and Fabio both worked for those two companies. Is that correct?
Correct.
Can you just briefly explain what those companies are?
So Procter & Gamble is the largest consumer goods company in the world, still is today. And Coty purchased our fine fragrances, salon professional, cosmetics businesses in 2016, and we were spun off from Procter & Gamble.
Were you already employed by the company before Fabio came on board?
Yes.
Can you explain how that happened?
I joined right out of college in 1992 and started in sales, and I developed a specialty in hair care and helped with the acquisition of Clairol. So I had a color background, hair color. And when we bought Wella, Procter & Gamble had no experience in the salon professional division. And so because I knew color from Clairol and Fabio was a hairdresser, I'm not a hairdresser, we were put together to help integrate this business.
What was his role?
His role was in charge of the field, the relationship with all of our artists, all of our shows, all the aspects of the salon professional that I was not familiar with. I was familiar with all the Procter & Gamble processes and systems, and he was familiar with salon professional, the industry.
So did you move to Woodland Hills at the same time frame that Fabio and his family moved to Woodland Hills?
Yes, we both moved in July 2010.
Do you know his wife, Monica Sementilli?
Yes.
Do you see her in court?
Yes.
Can you please identify where she's sitting and what she's wearing?
She's wearing a blue blazer and a white sweater.
And again, what time frame is this now when your two families, yours and the Sementillis, moved to Woodland Hills?
July 2010.
How long did you live in Woodland Hills then?
So I was told very early on that the goal was that Fabio would be my successor, and I knew that from the beginning in 2010. And my goal was, by the company, was to enable one of the first hairdressers to take over a major billion-dollar, multi-billion-dollar business within salon professional. So we started working together in 2010.
So from 2010, then you were working with Fabio in the understanding that he would take over your role at some point.
That's right.
How long did you remain then living in Woodland Hills with this relationship with Fabio?
So 2013, he was promoted into my role, and I was assigned to go to Global to do the same thing I had done in North America and Switzerland. So I didn't technically move to Switzerland in 2014.
Okay. So during that time frame then, did you maintain a relationship with the Sementillis?
Absolutely.
And can you just describe what that relationship was between you and your family and the Sementillis?
So because we were both put into a city that neither of us was familiar with, and because I knew, I don't know that Fabio, but I think he did know that he was going to be my heir apparent. We didn't talk about that so much, but we just came together for everything, whether it was Easter dinners, we entertained our staff at our homes. I met his family, he met my family, we met Monica's family at Christmas for drinks at our house one time, and we were very intertwined. My partner and Monica shopped together. You have no support system when you move to another country, as they did, and as we moved to a city we'd never been to.
During this time frame, 2010 until you moved to Switzerland in 2014, did you observe you yourself any, what you presume to be any problems or concerns between the relationship between the defendant and Fabio?
Not at all.
Overruled.
So at some point then, you moved to Switzerland to resume or assume a new responsibility. Did you keep in touch with the Sementilli family?
Absolutely. Mostly Fabio, but we did communicate, and Fabio was always invited to our house when he came over. There were big events every year called the Hair Olympics Trend Vision, and I don't recall all of the events, whether Monica came, but I know the last one in 2016 she wasn't able to make, but my partner had asked if they would go out and do things in Barcelona, but she wasn't able to make that one.
Now, the date of January 23rd, 2017, how did you hear about the murder of Fabio?
My cell phone went off. It was 6:30 in the morning in Geneva, and I looked at the cell phone and thought, why is Michelle Mason calling me, my boss? And kind of thought that was rude to call so early in the morning, but I picked up the phone, and she was crying, and she was yelling in the phone, Fabio's dead. And of course I was shocked and asked, what happened? What's going on? What are you talking about? And
did you do something within the company then to announce that?
Yes. So I had to go right into the office and get with public relations. Fabio had a huge presence in our company across the world, and I had to work on, with the public relations and Michelle, all the communications to the entire organization.
Did you come back to Toronto then, February 4th, for the memorial that was held in Canada?
I did.
Prior to that, did you come back to any of the memorials that were held in Woodland Hills?
No.
Specifically the memorial in Toronto, February 4th, did you see the defendant there?
I did.
Did you talk to her there?
It wasn't a time or place to talk. I just met her in the greeting line where all the people were greeting her at the wake, and then I was at the church and saw the family, but it was, maybe I was able to touch her, give her a slight hug in the wake line, but that was it.
Subsequent to that, did you end up traveling then to Los Angeles at some point?
Yes.
When was that?
Immediately afterwards.
Okay. When you say immediately, you're at February 4th in Toronto. Would it be within the week?
Literally, it was the same ticket. So I stopped in Toronto because I had spoken with Sal and had offered, because I had led the North America organization, that I would come back to help with emotional support and leadership support because of my global role, but also because I had run North America prior to FAB and knew everybody. So
during that time frame in February, did you go to the Sementilli house?
I did.
Can you explain that
meeting? So it was probably a week or so after the Toronto service, and Dave Diaz, Patty, his wife, and I were in Woodland Hills.
Can I interrupt you for one moment?
Yes.
Who is Dave Diaz?
Dave Diaz was formerly Fabio's boss in Canada, and he was also on an international assignment in Woodland Hills, and he was in charge of our go-to-market strategy operations.
If I may mark an exhibit as people's 91, a photograph of an individual labeled at the top, David Diaz.
Yes.
Is that who you're referring to as David Diaz?
Yes.
Okay. So you went with him and his wife over to the Sementilli house then somewhere around the week of February 12th, that time frame?
Somewhere.
Okay.
Yes.
And when you got there, what happened?
We had offered to bring brunch because of our strong connections. Had nothing really to do with the company, just our strong connections to be there for Monica and the girls. I believe Monica's sister was there. The girls were there. Patty, because they lived in LA at the time, I did not. She brought a egg casserole and I picked up bagels, and we went over and just tried to lend emotional support.
During that time frame, during that time then, how did you feel about being in the house?
I was totally freaked out.
Can you explain that?
Yeah, I had heard that Fabio had been murdered there and on the patio by the pool, and we didn't know who had done it at that time and didn't know if people would come back and try to attack or anything like that, and so I would never have gone by myself, and yeah, it was just, we were all freaked out.
How did, in your opinion, how did Monica, the defendant, appear? Did she appear scared at all while you were there?
No.
Did anything happen that scared you while you were there?
Yes.
What happened?
The windows were open because it was a nice day, and the wind caught a door in the house and slammed it, and David, myself, and Patty jumped up from the table and were completely freaked out and even jumped up and looked what had happened, and the family just said, oh, it's a door, that happens. But we were already on edge being in the house, but I distinctly remember being so scared.
Were you shown around the house or the back patio by the defendant?
Yes, I hadn't been to this house before. I'd been to their other house, and I really didn't want to go outside, but they wanted to show me the pool and the area, and so as quickly as I could, I went back in to the house.
So you were shown the area where you knew or thought you knew Fabio to be murdered?
Yeah.
Was there anything unusual about that area that you noticed?
I just tried not to look at it. I was very uneasy.
At that time, did you talk to the defendant at all about the safety of staying in that house?
Not at that time. The next time we got together, this was very raw, and so we were really there to be there for the family and the kids, and it wasn't a time to ask a lot of questions other than how are you doing and get caught up on kind of more superficial things.
Did you see the defendant at another point a month later in March?
I did.
What was the reason for that?
Again, we were always trying to lend support to her and the kids, and I had invited them out to dinner to an Italian place I knew they liked in Woodland Hills, and Monica, Jess, and one of the cousins came, but Isabella wasn't there because she was working.
And this was a dinner?
This was a dinner.
In March?
March.
I don't know if you said this, but you know about what time you went to dinner?
What time? It was after work for me, so probably 5:36.
Okay. And during that dinner then, did you specifically talk about the house and feeling safe in the house?
Well, I asked Monica how she was doing, how could I help with anything, and that's when we started getting into, because the girls were a little more separated in the booth away from us, and I could ask her some questions of how could I help, and that's when we started talking about, do you feel safe in the house?
And what did she tell you?
She did. She shared that someone had given money or they had redone linens and stuff in the house, and so because all that was taken care of, she felt safe in the house.
Did she talk about any security, though, such as surveillance or alarms or anything of that nature?
Not that I recall.
So she only, when you asked her about safety, she talked about getting money for linens and things of that nature.
Yeah, there were some things replaced. Because again, we thought this was a, burglary gone wrong type of thing, and somebody being in your house touching your stuff. I assume that's why they replaced stuff, because that would be gross.
So when you're having this conversation about, can I help you with anything? What do you need? Did she talk to you at all about money?
Yes.
And what was that conversation?
The first part was that Cody was going to no longer pay Fabio's salary, and she didn't know what she was going to do.
And let me stop you. This is March of 2017, so somewhere around 6-7 weeks after the murder, correct?
Correct.
Now, up until this point, had there been any guarantee to the defendant that Fabio's salary would be extended for 6 months?
As form sustained.
Up until this point, had there been any conversation regarding giving Monica money from your company to help her survive, basically?
Well,
Well, then you tell us the conversation.
I said, how can I help? Is there anything else that I can do? And she mentioned that his salary was stopping, and I know how expensive things are in California. And so I said, well, let me go back. That doesn't seem right. Even when we let people go for cause, we often give them several months of money to ease their transition. And so I went back and spoke with Henry, and Henry took up the fight to get 6 months of his salary extended, which then gave them a glide path that would not just immediately stop the income from coming in.
So from that conversation, then, you were able to start the ball rolling of securing that 6 month salary?
Correct. Henry did all the work, but I brought back the concern, and also, to me, an injustice that that's not how we treat people at our company.
Okay, so at this point, you're wanting, obviously, to help financially.
Yes, I was advocating that they get the money.
What about insurance? Did she bring up the insurance or life insurance?
She brought up that she was very frustrated with the police because she was calling them constantly, like every day, to get an update of what was going on. She wasn't hearing back, and that, yes, that the insurance was not available, but that was also the next means of support, and actually, if we didn't give her the salary, that would have been her primary means of support.
Did she ask you for any help with the insurance?
I think it was in the conversation that just, I never called the police. I took everything back to Henry, but I shared with Henry that she's not getting answers. Maybe the company can call and help. But that's as far, I just took everything back to Henry because he was the point person.
Was the financial aspect the primary topic when you spoke to the defendant, when you offered help?
Yes.
How did that dinner end then?
Well, like I mentioned, Isabella was not able to be there, which I was sad about because I wanted to see how she was doing, and she was working. And so I think Monica got a text towards the end of the meal that Isabella was on her way home. And I said, oh, please tell her to come this way before she goes home, and we can get a dinner and I can stay. We can order it, no problem. And she said, no, Isabella's going directly home. And I said, imagined a teenager coming into the dark house that I was so freaked out to be at, because now it's 7:38 at night. I'm like, go. I got the bill. I was going to pick up the bill anyhow, but I'm like, no, you have to go. You have to be at the house to meet her. And there was no urgency to do that. They did leave, but it was me that was freaking out of thinking of her. And if I was the mom, I would have insisted that she come to the restaurant and not go home alone.
Was it dark out at this time that
Yes.
Isabella was texting that she was on her way home?
Yes.
And your observation, the defendant, did she seem concerned at all that her 16-year-old daughter was going home alone in the dark to the house where her father was murdered?
No.
As forms, that is overruled.
So,
The objection was overruled.
and your answer was,
No.
Thank you.
thank you. Monica then, the defendant, did she tell you about a trip to Vegas?
Yes.
And what did she tell you about that?
That was also at the March dinner, and she said a friend of hers had a timeshare, and she was going to go take some time off and go to this timeshare in Vegas.
Did she tell you who she was going with?
She did not.
Did she tell you why she was going?
Just to get away, and I remember being a little bit shocked because to me Vegas is not the place that I would go immediately after the tragedy. But then I felt really badly for judging her if that's where she had somebody who offered her, because of the money situation, a free place to go. That okay, you know, Vegas might not be for me, but if somebody has a timeshare there and they offer it to you, then it kind of made sense that she might do that.
And do you know if she ever stayed in this timeshare?
Objection, foundation, speculation.
Sustain.
When you, did she tell you about a Rob Baker? Did you ever hear that name come out of her mouth?
No,
Did she tell you that she was having an intimate relationship with somebody?
no,
Did she ever tell you that she was going to Las Vegas with another man?
no.
Thank you. Have any more questions?
Hi, good morning, Ms. Schoen.
Hi.
You testified about your relationship with the Sementilli family from 2010 to about 2017, right?
Yes,
And how you had a very intertwined relationship with the family
yes,
and entertained together, spent holidays together.
yes,
And am I correct that, and you were interviewed by the detectives and the prosecutor in this case for the first time in March of 2021, right?
I'm not sure of the exact time, but
Okay.
I was interviewed by them, yes.
It was several years after Monica's arrest.
It could be, if you have the time.
Sorry.
Were you interviewed more than one time, or was it just one time?
Twice.
Okay, and do you recall when you were interviewed the second time?
Yeah, that one I recall. That was, I think, April of 2024, because we thought it was going to trial.
And at that interview, did you just review what you had
Yes.
previously told the detectives in the prior interview?
Yes,
Am I correct that when you were interviewed, you described the relationship between Monica and Fabio as very adoring and very loving?
yes,
And that, in your opinion, you observed that they had a very healthy relationship?
that's what we observed.
When you went to the memorial in Toronto around February 4th, you testified that you had only briefly seen Monica. There was some sort of line and people were greeting Monica.
Yes,
And am I correct that you also, when you were first interviewed by the detectives, you relayed to the detectives that at that memorial, Monica could hardly speak,
yes,
and that you actually described her as she was basically fell apart?
yes,
And then you saw Monica just shortly after that memorial in Los Angeles when you took it upon yourself to offer to bring brunch over to the home.
Yes.
And even though you knew that that home was the site of a crime scene, you did go over to that home to lend emotional support to Monica.
Yes.
You testified that you said they wanted to show you the crime scene area. Who is they that wanted to show you the area?
I wouldn't say they wanted to show me the crime scene area. I think they wanted me to see the new house and the pool and the outside area, which was beautiful, but that was where the crime scene was.
Okay. And who is they?
Monica, the girls, they were very excited about the house because I had not seen it. I'd seen their other home before that. And so they were really proud of this beautiful home, but it forced me to go where the crime had been.
Okay, so it was Monica, Jessica, and Bella who had given you kind of like a home tour
Yes.
of the new place.
Yes.
And then you testified that you testified about this dinner at a restaurant sometime in March with Monica and Jessica.
Yes.
Was anybody else at that dinner?
Yes, one of the cousins.
Okay, do you know
I think
which cousin?
Monica's sister's daughter, I believe. I don't remember her name.
Okay, and when you talked about how you were speaking with Monica and some people were off to the side in a booth, are you referring to Jessica and then the other cousin?
Yeah, where we sat was a booth, and it was large enough where the girls were doing the girls' thing, and I don't know if they were looking at social media or what they were doing, but it was appropriate for me to ask Monica some things and have an adult conversation while they were distracted and talking right there, because there's certain things you don't want to talk about in front of teenagers.
Okay, and is it your belief that neither of the girls overheard that conversation with Monica?
Yes.
With respect to, well, let me ask you this. After that March dinner, you during this period of January 23 to June of 2017, you were located in Switzerland, right?
No, I was flying back every few weeks to be with the organization doing both jobs and trying to help the North America organization and the leadership team that Fabio had, and consoling everyone, but also running the business, so doing two jobs. So I was literally on a plane every couple weeks back and forth.
And when you came to Los Angeles, going back and forth, you often reached out to Monica and offered to let me know if there's anything I can do to help.
Yes.
Do you want to do this? Do you want to do that?
Yes.
And at some point in April, you did you also see Monica in April?
I didn't see her in April. We were supposed to get together, but she got detained at the Ford dealership for something. And the reason I remember it is because I had things to pick up, bowls and dishes that people had brought from Cody. And even though I couldn't meet her, she asked me to pick them up. They were on the front porch or step where the doorway was by the garage, and to return them to all the people who had brought them food. And I think I may have brought her food too and left it, but she couldn't meet me. But I remember it because I was completely freaked out again about being at that house by myself to go even pick up and drop off the things.
Okay. But you did actually go back to the
I did.
house to drop off
I
the
did.
items. Am I correct that when you were interviewed by the detectives and the prosecutors that you had described that in this time period, the times, 2 times that you had seen Monica, that you observed, you thought she looked horrible and was a complete mess, right?
She was a mess when I saw her in February, when at the funeral and the wake and stuff like that. When we went to the house for the brunch, she was pulling herself more together. When I saw her in the dinner, she was pulling herself together. There wasn't the hysterics that had been or anything. It was normal by that point, and normal conversation both at the brunch and at the dinner.
Okay. Did you also tell the detectives that Monica to you appeared depressed?
She didn't, it wasn't so much depressed. It was I hadn't seen her maybe in 2 years, and she had lost a lot of weight and got super fit. And so I wasn't familiar with a much smaller Monica is what I noticed, but I think others said that she had just gotten really fit. So when you don't see somebody in 2 years, that's what I was commenting more to.
Okay. Didn't you also tell the detectives that to you it appeared she had fallen into a complete collapse? Those were the words that you had used.
She was totally collapsed in February at the wake and at the church service. Yes.
Going back to the dinner in March, you testify that there was some conversation with Monica. You had actually asked Monica what's going on with the investigation, how are you doing, how are you feeling, and the topic of the status of the LAPD investigation and financial distress came up in that conversation.
Yes.
And you testified that Monica mentioned Fabio's salary was stopping. Okay.
Yes.
And then you took it upon yourself to go back to Henry Meyer and speak to him about why was the salary going to be stopping. Is
Yes.
that right?
Yes.
Okay. Monica didn't ask you to go do that?
No.
Okay. One moment, Your Honor.
The memorial, just a few questions for you. The memorial that you went to in Toronto, you said you had limited interaction with the defendant?
Yes, it was. Fabio was hugely popular. There was a half-hour wait to get up to where the family was, and in the room where you have the, I guess you call it a viewing, but there was not a viewing, to greet the family and show your respects. And so you're just in a big line, and a number of us from the company were there and went through to share our condolences, and that was the first encounter I had with the family.
So did you spend any time then with Monica, the defendant?
No, she was surrounded by family. It's not a place where I spoke with other people that had come into the viewing, but most of the family was completely consumed greeting all the other people that had come for condolences.
So from your observation point, it's what you would assume you would see a grieving widow at a memorial for her murdered husband, right?
Yes.
Did you ever see any tears or actually crying?
I can't say that I did. I saw hysterics. I saw Kleenex, but that was a long time ago, and I can't say that I definitively did.
When you went to her house in February, you said she was pulling herself together at this point. Did she have her composure then, as opposed to the memorial the week before?
Absolutely.
Was she crying with tears at the February meeting at her house?
No.
And then March, you said she was pulling herself together more. I think you used the words normal. Did everything appear normal to you as far as her behavior?
Yes.
Okay, no tears?
No tears.
No crying?
No crying.
And then during this March conversation, when you were talking about money and her need for money, you said then in response to defense questions that in April then you had a meeting to meet her, but she was detained at the Ford dealership. Is that right?
Yes.
What was the meeting for?
The meeting as person,
The
Plan?
meeting as to the dealership.
that's not what is that the meeting?
No.
Yeah, it's overruled.
Go ahead, you may answer.
I'm sorry, could you ask the
Sure.
question?
So you had a meeting or an appointment to meet with Monica that day in April when you found out she was at the Ford dealership.
Yes.
What was that for?
We were supposed to go out to dinner, or I was bringing dinner in, I don't remember which, and she was not going to be able to do it because she was running late at the dealership.
Okay. Now, that was weeks after you just had dinner with her when she was talking to you about money and needing money, correct?
Yes.
And you'd made efforts to secure her, you made your own efforts to secure her some financial relief.
Yes.
Did you know that in April she was buying a brand new Mustang at that Ford dealership when she didn't meet you for dinner as planned?
I didn't.
Objection, foundation, speculation.
So stand on the first ground.
Do you know what she was doing at the Ford dealership?
No.
Did she ever tell you that she was buying a new brand new Ford Mustang?
No.
Okay, thank you. I have no more questions.
Any recross?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you, Ms. Yuan. You're excused. May I call your next witness?